The holy grail of real estate investing is to have those big paydays, from those fix and flip deals and also creating ongoing cash flow, money that's going to keep coming in. To me, that is true security. Really, I think the definition of wealth, people have different definitions, but for me, wealth is really about how many days you could go without having to work again. The longer that is, the more wealthy you are. Now, that has two elements to it. It has your lifestyle, and it also has how much you're making passively. Or how much you actually have in savings. Now, it's a lot better to live off the passive income than it is to dip into your savings, because that'll eventually run out. So how can you invest that so that it can get a return for you? So today I'm going to show you one of my favorite ways to have money coming in every single month, with many of those being pretty passive. And that's what we're gonna be talking about today. So, how to create cash flow from real estate. That's what we're gonna be talking about today. We're gonna cover how you can create cash flow with real estate. And I'm gonna tell some ways that you probably haven't even thought of, like seller financing, how it works, and when to actually use that when you're selling a property, not just when you're buying a property. There's pros, there's cons, but it's something you should know about. We're gonna talk about different ways to create cash flow. We're gonna talk about rentals. We're gonna talk about long-term rentals. We're gonna talk about different things is what we're gonna be talking about here. So first off, rentals. Let's just talk, what are rentals? Rentals is buying a property, renting it, where you are hoping for a few things. You're hoping the value of the property to go up. You're hoping for the tenant to be paying down your mortgage so you owe less and less. You're hoping for having some tax write-offs. You're hoping for rent increases, and you're also hoping for some cash flow. And you're hoping that that will go up over time. That's what this whole long-term tenants is. Now, I really like long-term tenants, different than vacation rentals and those things. I like to have tenants stay a long time, but that's kind of long-term tenants. This is one of the things to be aware of, and this is preventative maintenance. How can you get some more cash flow? Well, when you have your rental properties, some preventative maintenance can go a long ways. I'll give you some examples, like making sure you change the filters in your furnace. If you're not changing those filters, you could get yourself into having to replace one, or a burnout motor or something like that, that a $10 filter could have taken care of. So one of the things that we do when somebody moves into a property, we give them a list of things that they need to be doing. Like in the fall, they've got to change that filter out. In the spring, they've got to change the filter out. They've got to make sure that there's no leaves and that type of stuff that are in the gutters that could have some leaking. Those are types of things that are very inexpensive to do. And as a matter of fact, something that I have my tenants do so I don't have to worry about it. Another way to make some more cash flow is letting your tenants pay for utilities. Back a long time ago, it was like the landlord paid for utilities. Now, I don't think you should be doing that, because I can't control how much water, I can't control how much garbage, I can't control any of those types of things. Gas, electric, that's all up to the individual. Now, it used to be in plexes, duplexes, threeplex, fourplexes, there was 1 meter and you had to just give them an amount and they would pay that amount. But if you're dealing with single family houses, I really recommend that you get a landlord's agreement with the utility companies. And what that basically means is the tenant can go in and say, hey, put this all in my name. But if they don't pay it, especially if it's gas, they notify you as the landlord. Now, it's gonna be different because every utility company is different, but most of them have some type of a landlording program. And if your tenant's paying for that, that's gonna make you more money. And so that's something you need to strongly take a look at. Tenant does landscape work. Okay, this is another thing I make my tenants do. They have to cut the grass. They have to plow. I'm not doing that for them. They are at the property. They're taking care of that. So they're doing all the landscape. They're doing the work. They're pushing the snow. That's not anything that I am doing. And so the next one we want to talk about is refinancing. If you haven't refinanced a property or rental property, if you can refinance and lower how much you are paying, it can create more cash flow for you simply by going through the loan process. Now, you are going to have to credit qualify. That means you have to have income. You're going to have good credit. You can't have bankruptcies and those types of things when you're doing that refinance. So that's something else to keep in mind. Now, we talked about this earlier, but raising of rents. Rents go up over time. This is a graph from, what are we at here? 1860 to 1970. That shows you what happened to rents over that period of time. Now, there's some ups, there's some downs, but for the most part, that's a straight line up if you're asking me. Turn single families into duplexes. So this is something you can do. To give you an example, I had a single family house, and in the back there was a detached garage. I turned that detached garage into its own living unit. There was enough parking for both of them, one on each side, and I was able to increase the value of the property, and I was able to increase my cash flow quite considerably. Something you should be thinking about is how you can actually do that. Now, there's ways that are legal to do that, and there's ways that are illegal to do that. It's something you're gonna have to look at and see what's the best course of action. Okay, so this is something called seller financing. Now, there's seller financing when you buy a property. What I'm talking about is seller financing when you sell a property. So one of the things that you can do is you can sell your property on contract. And this works really well, especially if you're in some of the lower end houses. Let's say you buy a property for $50,000 and you want to resell that for $90,000 once it's all fixed up. Well, rather than having somebody just give you $90,000, you could have somebody, and getting a loan for it, you could have somebody give you $10,000 or $20,000. And then what you could do is say, hey, you have to make monthly payments to me. Meaning you're selling it, but you were actually the bank. Now, if you had a mortgage or there's a mortgage from a prior owner, you could do what's called a wraparound mortgage, where you leave the existing mortgage in place, but you sell the property, they make payments that pays the existing mortgage, and the remainder gets paid to you. I will tell you, if you're gonna do seller financing, you wanna make sure you're getting your money out of it. So if you're gonna do seller financing, it might make sense to do a second position, or it might make sense to make sure your cash is out of it. And that kind of leads us to this second position loan. Let's say a buyer can get 80% of loan, but they're short 20% of loan. You decide to seller finance 20% of loan, 80% gets you your money out of it, and 20% is what you keep on there. They make monthly payments to you. Keep in mind though, if you are in second position, if they do not take care of the first mortgage, you can get foreclosed on and end up getting nothing. So I really recommend, if you're gonna be in this second type position, that is just profit that you're dealing with, and you're not gonna be losing any principles. So something you should be taking a quick look at as we are going through this. Get the most of your money back, and then get payments for the rest. Another thing a lot of people don't think about is general partnerships. General partnerships are basically where someone goes out and sponsors a deal. They've got credit, they've got some income, they go and find a property, and then they get limited partners to put up money for the down payment. And then they are in charge of it. They make the decisions, they hire management, and those types of things. That can be a great way to get some cash flow, is you can be a general partnership. But on the other side of that, you can also be in a limited partnership, which means you're putting up the money in a limited capacity. You put the money up, they get to make the decisions, they get to do what they want to do, but it's a limited partnership. They do have some fiduciary responsibilities to people that have put money in there, but in the end, they really control and have the rights of what they're going to do. Now, this is one of the most creative cash flow strategies I have ever heard of. And this is what's called master leases. So let's say your credit's bad, or let's say you're having a hard time finding a property. One of the things you can do is go to someone and say, I would like to lease your property. And what you do is get the right to release that property. So you can say, hey, I'm gonna lease the property for $800. You have to take care of the utilities. You have to do all those things, for the stuff that we don't wanna do, right? And then on the reverse side, you can say, hey, you're gonna rent it for $1,000. So you don't own the property, but you have what's called a master lease, and you can sublease that property to someone else and make a difference in the middle. Now this can work out really well, because some landlords are like, I don't wanna deal with anything. Well, I'm gonna be your best tenant ever, because I'm gonna take care of that. And if things come up, I'll take care of that. That's called master leasing. Something you should really check out. It's basically leasing with the right for you to release to someone else. Because obviously you're not gonna move into the property. Another thing you can do for cash flow is what's called vacation rentals, or VRBOs, or also just Airbnbs. There's not just vacation rentals, but there's people that are traveling, or people that are going places that just need a place to stay. This could be a basement apartment. This could be a room. This is kind of interesting. This is renting by the night. Now, most areas, they do have some requirements. Some of those requirements around zoning and what they allow and what they don't allow. So that's something that you've got to be very aware of.